Hello and welcome to the LaLanne Pass It On podcast. My name is Greg Justice, and I am here with the real star of the show, Elaine. LaLanne. How are you today, Elaine?
Oh, I'm fine, but I'm no star.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Today, we are thrilled to have a very special guest, the legendary Keith Morrison. You know him as the iconic journalist and captivating storyteller from Dateline NBC, where his distinctive voice and deep dive into some of the most compelling true crime stories have kept audiences hooked for years. In today's episode, Keith shares insights into his career, what it takes to tell a truly gripping story, and maybe even a few behind-the-scenes secrets from his time interviewing Jack and Elaine. Get ready for an engaging conversation with one of the most recognizable voices in journalism today. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. It's a delight actually to be here and to hear in one paragraph, legendary and iconic. I mean, good Lord, who are you talking about anyway? Not me.
Well, hey, I've got two legendary and iconic people on the show today. I mean, both you and Elaine. So I can't wait to hear the two of you tell some stories.
I don't know how iconic I am. That's a new one.
I would say that fits. Yeah, yeah. So how was your party? Did you have a good one? That turning
Oh my goodness. I was flabbergasted, here all these people came on and wished me a happy 99th birthday.
Yeah.
Well, I used to tell everybody, I don't care if I live to be, whenever I go. Well, now it's only a year away, so now I want to live to be 100.
Isn't that what Jack always said? I got to live to be 100. It's part of the brand.
Yeah, he wants you to stick around and find out.
I've
got to live to be 150. I know. I want you to stick around and find out.
Yeah. My gosh, that had more sayings than anybody else I ever met. But his LaLanneisms, his always some saying to cover just about any circumstance, didn't
he? Yeah. He always I said, if you honk that horn one more time, I'm going to divorce you. He says, promise?
Yeah.
He was always right on. His dad told him, if you tell somebody you're going to be there at 1:00 and you're 1 minute late, you've lied. So Jack, he's always there. He was always honking the horn at me. So. Keith, I didn't know that you were from Canada, and I was brought up in Minnesota, and I don't know how far Saskatchewan was from Minnesota, but
not that far. I mean, I lived for a time in Winnipeg too, I grew up in Saskatoon mostly, and other small towns around Saskatchewan. My dad was a preacher, so he was assigned to various different little places around the prairie provinces. But when I started working, I was working in Winnipeg, which is, kind of north of Minnesota, as you say.
Really? Yeah, well, my father said, I'm going to take you so you can jump over the Mississippi River. And so he took us up to northern Minnesota, and I jumped over the Mississippi River. Because it was just a little stream, it starts, which is quite interesting to me. Yeah.
We used to talk about our 2 seasons there in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, winter and July. And in July, the mosquitoes were fairly big. So that's why they call little airplanes mosquitoes.
Yeah. I had a lot of bites.
Yeah.
My mother used to sit in the backyard with a bucket, and then she said, and then the bucket was between her legs, and she had a little fire going in the bucket. I said, what is that? She says, that's my smudge pot to get rid of the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
I had never seen that before.
They work. Yeah.
It works. But we want to know just a little bit about how you got started in it, and then we go from there. And I'd like to know what prompted you into video or radio and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, frankly, some people get started because they work hard at a particular career and they decide they want to do that with the rest of their lives, and they go at it hard and from early on in life, and go to college and get the degree and the rest of it. I was one of those other kind, the kind that couldn't seem to do anything particularly well. But everything to some, I love doing all kinds of things, except I had this tendency to flunk out of school. So I finished high school, but did not finish college. And I was bumming around trying to figure out something to do with my life. And my dad, who I said was a minister, there was a job that needed to be done by some young person who didn't necessarily have to have a degree for one summer, and he said, "Do you want to do that?" And I said, "Sure." So it was kind of associated with, you had to be like a minister in a little community in the course of the summertime in the middle of the prairies, so small farming communities. And I realized by the end of the summer, I'm probably not cut out for this sort of work either. But I was sitting one day watching television in my grandfather's house, trying to figure out what the heck to do with my life. And I'm watching this guy read the news. And he wasn't that good. And I said to myself, I can do that. And so I started going around to all the radio and television stations asking if they wanted to hire somebody who had absolutely no experience, but a lot of interest. And eventually one did. So that's how I got started. It's a little radio station in Saskatoon. And went from one to the other, to the other, to the other. So
That's exactly what happened to me. I was watching television had first come on in the 1950s, and I was watching it on a little screen at home, and I said, "Oh my, that would be fun." And all of a sudden, I'm demonstrating 45 records, and this guy comes over to me, and I'm saying, lady said, can I get Bing Crosby? I said, "No, you can't get Bing Crosby. You can get Perry Como, and he sounds just like him." And so this guy comes over to me and he said, "I'm starting a TV show, and I want to come over to KYA and talk to me about it." So I went over there, and he tells me a little bit about it. And you'd have to call up all these people and get me a list of people to interview, and you'll be my Girl Friday. So he said, "Do you think you can do it?" I had no idea what I was doing. I said, "Yes." And that's how I got on television in 1949.
49, wow.
In San Francisco.
Yeah.
An hour and a half show every day, and that's how I met Jack on that show. He did push-ups through the whole 90, and then we had the 12-piece orchestra left over from radio, and that's how I met Jack, because he started his show on KGO TV.
And Elaine, the first time you met Jack, tell Keith what you had in your hands.
He said, he walked over to my desk and he said, "You ought to be eating apples and bananas and oranges." I said, "Oh yeah." Smoking.
And now, Keith, let's talk about the first time you met Jack LaLanne, and tell the story behind it, how that happened and when it was.
Well, this was, gosh, it was not until the 90s. It was the early 90s I met Jack, and I was doing I've been back and forth between the U.S. and Canada for years, but at that point I was doing a morning show in Canada, but doing freelance work for this new show that had just kind of got reconstituted named Dateline, and the guy running the show. This is when we did all kinds of feature stories about everything under the sun. And I got a call one day, and he asked if I was interested in going to meet this guy named Jack LaLanne, and I certainly knew who Jack LaLanne was, and I thought, well, really? They want to do a story about him? Wasn't he? He's still around after all these years?" And he sure was. So we went off to see Jack in California, and he gave us the kind of rundown of all the things that he did. I had, in those days, believe it or not, it was not uncommon. I keep saying this over and over again, for men to wear tights when they went to work out. And so he had said, dress for a workout. I put tights on it. And I still have to look at that video being played on television every once in a while. It's tremendously embarrassing, but it was in a silly way. But it was fun. We had a great day. He was the great thing about Jack was I can't remember how old would he have been then, Elaine, back in '94. Anyway, he was
Yeah,
of
he
a
was
certain.
old.
He was old as far as I was concerned, but now anyway, he was the crew. We were all just watching, mesmerized, because he would get into his swimming pool and swim against the rope. Remember that, Elaine?
Yes, right. Yeah. And
And
he got you in the gym.
got me in the gym, and he was showing me how to do leg lifts and all kinds of other stuff. And he was putting on his Jack LaLanne impression, which was he'd whack you in the stomach if you didn't do a good job, and keep encouraging you to do more. But the great thing about Jack was his tremendous enthusiasm for all of it. That anybody can do this, anybody can do what they can do,
Yeah.
and that there are ways you can live to make yourself healthy. And when you're healthy, you're happier, and you live longer, and you have a better life. And he was such a missionary for this.
Yeah.
You couldn't help but be caught up in the enthusiasm of it.
That's true. And he was always telling it's simple. Don't make it complicated.
Exactly.
Simple.
Yeah. Right.
And there's I must mention that when he came to the house, I was making soup.
Yeah.
So I said to him, "Would you like a bowl of soup?" And
Yeah.
you drank my soup.
Yeah. We all sat down, the crew and I, and we had Elaine's vegetable soup. It was fantastic. It was so good that I had to know how to do it, and I've been making that same vegetable soup ever since, for the last year.
5 years later, he came up again and interviewed Jack, and I made him a soup. I think he came up.
These stories every once in a while as kind of markers, just to show this amazing guy, and the fact that he, just kept on ticking. And mostly because he just kept providing tremendous enthusiasm and support for people who wanted to be healthier, wanted to live better lives. And I will be forever grateful to that man, and to you, Elaine, for your equal amount of enthusiasm and support.
I want to carry on his legacy, and Jack never really got his due. It's always started. It started with Jane Fonda, and it started with Richard Simmons, but it started way back in the 1930s. When he started inventing this equipment and the leg extension and whatnot. So that's my goal till I die. And I don't know. It doesn't look like I'm going to die. I'm pretty strong inside. I don't know about the outside, my leg and my eyes, but I'll be wiggling on the inside. I will tell you that.
Yeah, the program
I
helps.
can still do 20 jackknives, go up and touch not my toes, but close to my ankles every day.
That ain't bad. Yeah. I wish I could. Yeah.
Hey, Keith, you're such a wonderful storyteller, and obviously everyone will know you from Dateline. I would love for you to share a story or two of your favorite memories of Jack while you were there with Elaine and Jack.
It was his attitude as much as anything, as opposed to some specific story. To be in Jack's presence was he was a little guy, right? Elaine, he was not a tall man, but he was a giant in the sense that you felt his presence would fill the whole room. It was, when Jack was around, everybody was agog. The crew, you can never, you can't fool a good television crew. You know, they've seen it all. They've all the people who are trying to impress them one way or another. And they would be basically unimpressed. But at Jack's place, everybody was enthused. Everybody loved it. They loved going on that assignment. And you know, they would watch in awe as he would do his thing. But mostly it was just sort of thrilled to be there, because here was the icon, the man who did it all, who invented this way of living for so millions and millions of people around the world.
Do you remember? I've watched that interview many times, and one of my favorite lines was when he was talking to you about there's nothing that he wouldn't do for Elaine,
Yeah,
and there's nothing that Elaine wouldn't do for him. So they spend most of their days doing nothing for each other. Do you remember him saying that?
that's
That
exactly
was, that was in one of the interviews you did with him, and that just made me chuckle so loud.
true.
And
Yeah.
the airports. Hi, Jack. Oh, he says, don't greet me like that on an airplane.
Hey, Elaine, what do you remember about those interviews when Keith would come up? What's your favorite memories of those interviews?
Well, I have a lot of memories of it, but it's the way that Keith listened to Jack, and Keith has a way to roll his eyes, you know, and I can't explain it, but but I I saw him, you know, who is this guy, you know, when he came, and then pretty soon I saw him think, you know, this guy's got something, you know. So that's what I saw in Keith when we got there, because a lot of people when they meet Jack, they have no idea what they're getting into, you know.
Well, I certainly didn't have any idea, but by the time I left, I knew I had to come back at some point. I was so happy that the program, you know, suggested we ought to go and you know, spend more time with Jack every once in a while, just to kind of
Yes,
keep track of the man.
every 5 years or 3 years of
Yeah,
he would come up and
and,
update
yeah,
Jack.
exactly. And the show loved doing it, and it was one of the most popular, you
Yeah.
know, popular segments we ran. I remember going to his, what was it, 92nd birthday in the Pierre Hotel in New York. He had a big party.
Oh, you know, that was his 90th birthday.
90th.
Yeah, Keith and I, boy, we thought we were Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire.
I know, we had a great night. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a nice time. It was a very nice birthday party for Jack. And then when Jack was 88, Keith came down for the star ceremony. Remember that, Keith? When you got the star on Hollywood Boulevard?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he came down and wished him not bon voyage, but
No, it
good.
was, yeah,
He
it,
wasn't ready for bon voyage yet.
yeah.
So anyway, it was lots of fun. We had a lot.
So
And then he
1990,
came to his memorial. You spoke at Jack's memorial.
Well, a little. Although I tell you what, I came into that room. Elaine had asked if I would make a few remarks at the memorial, and you know, what do you say about Jack? I was filled with emotion about the man. I don't know why, but I just fell in love with the guy, and it was just his whole attitude about life, and he seemed like somebody I would want to have in my family. You know, he came to matter to me as much as anybody, and so did Elaine. So when it was time for a memorial service, I said I'd be happy to talk, although I didn't quite know what to say. But I was ushered into this big room it was a big theater where they had the service, a lot of people there, and somebody took me down to the front row, right below the stage. And there's a row of chairs there and the names on the back of the chairs. And I was sitting in the front row, really? And there was my name on a chair. And right beside me on the next chair, the name was Arnold Schwarzenegger. Which I thought, oh God, now I'm in trouble. So I sat, waited patiently, and Arnold came along, sat down beside me. And he was, you know, he was very pleasant, very Arnold. And then, so frankly, I talked about the vegetable soup because that's what always springs to my mind when I think of Jack and Elaine. But Arnold got up and he made a really amazing speech. I sat there, you know, kind of dumbfounded at how exceptional the man was at describing Jack's legacy and the importance of it.
Yes, he was very funny too about the Jack getting into the gates of heaven. So it was so Keith has been there on the for Jack, and I want you to know from the bottom of my athletic heart, Jack, I stole that from Jack,
Yeah.
that I do appreciate that you were able to see the Jack that I know and then all his friends know. And so many people think about Jack as not, you know, just, you know, the juicer and whatnot, but there's so much to him. His mind, he said, the mind is a mine. It's full of diamonds, and all you need to do is dig them up. And that's we didn't have a negative word in our household, because he said, if somebody said something negative, he says, that's negative. We don't talk negative in this house. And so it's been always very positive. And if there was anything that we had a disagreement on, like where to put this, where to put that piece of furniture or whatever, he would make something funny out of it. He made something funny out of everything. If anything was, you know, the opposite, he made a funny out of it. So we laughed through life, and it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience to be with him for 52, married 52 years and dating 6 years.
Wow.
Want to make sure this was going to work this time. Because we were both married before.
Exactly. Well, I was, you know, one of the great pleasures of my career has been to be able to reintroduce Jack to a new audience who maybe didn't know him so well, and try to, in whatever way I could, to show what a positive, what an interesting man he was, but what a great influence on people he could be, whether they were, you know, going to the gym and working out, or just eating healthier, or just adopting a more positive attitude toward life and enjoying their lives to the fullest. That was what he was all about, seemed to me.
He had friends that, you know, were 300 pounds.
Yeah.
But he would never try to change him.
No.
You know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So he had a golf buddy that was 300 pounds, and I don't know whether he ever lost weight, but you know, but he was, you know, people that were influenced by him, and they did lose weight, or they did, but he never went to, you should do this, you should do that. That's not Jack, you know.
Keith, I'm curious, because you, above anyone that we have interviewed, will know the answer to this question. What do you, because you've been on TV for so long, what was it about Jack that he was able to look into a TV screen and draw people into him? What did you see in Jack that caused that reaction?
Well, he was real. He could let his personality shine through without any filter between him and the camera. That was, you look down the. One of my very first bosses said to me when I was nervous, I was starting to read the news, on television, and the first few times you do it, you're scared to death. And he said, just look down the barrel and talk to your mama. And that sort of sense of drop all the pretension, just be yourself,
Right.
and talk to the people. Talk to people as if they're your best friends. That's what he was able to do, and he brought his personality onto television that way. Those are early. I'm sorry, Elaine, but those early videos are just gold. They're when he was doing the workouts for daytime TV. Standing up on the chair and all the rest of the stuff that he used to do. It was just wonderful. People love watching it even now.
Yeah, he said when he started this show, he says, I only want one camera because I want to talk to that person out there.
Right.
And don't give me this camera, don't give me any more cameras. I feel so strongly about this person, each and every one of them.
Because you're talking to one person at a time. That's the whole secret.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Be yourself. I tell everybody that be yourself. Don't try to be anybody that you're not. Don't try to emulate somebody because there's nobody like you. Who in the world? How could he be a Keith Morrison? There's no way. He's Greg and you're Keith. And I love you both.
Love you back.
So that's
Thank you so much for taking the time to share some stories and visit with Elaine and me today. We sincerely appreciate you keeping the legacy of Jack going forward and just appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
he's another one. He is real. He's a real person. I mean, what you see is what you get. God bless you and thank you so much. And Godspeed.
Thank you. Bless you too. Take care.